In this video you will learn how to create your own 3D website using react-three fiber, React, TypeScript, Vite and Tailwind CSS. Tailwind CSS is optional and therefore if you want to, you can skip that part, but be aware that you might need to style your own website in the future, and for that I really like Tailwind CSS. To be able to follow along, you will need to have Node installed and you will need a text editor. I will use Visual Studio Code, but you can choose any text editor you like. I added links to the download pages in the description. So let's start creating our project using Vite. Run npm init at vite.js/app to create your project. This will ask you to give your project a name. Fill in a name and choose React using TypeScript as your framework and variant. And that is all it takes for Vite to be able to create your project, which contains those files. But because we want to create a 3D website, we will need to add some dependencies to our project. To do that, we need to run the following 3 commands. First, go to your newly created project and run the second command to install three.js and react-three fiber. Then run the third command to add three.js types to our project as a dev dependency, which we need because we use TypeScript, and three.js is JavaScript only by default. And that is all it takes to be able to create our 3D website. But to add some styling in the future, we will add Tailwind CSS first. Therefore, you will need to install a few dev dependencies and add a Tailwind config file by running the following commands. Once the dependencies have been installed and the Tailwind config file has been created, let's modify it by adding the following path to the content array. This will make sure Tailwind can find all the files it needs to scan. After, we will need to create one more file for the post-CSS configuration, which is being used by Tailwind to transform CSS using JavaScript. Add this file manually to your project, name it postcss.config.js and add the following default code. Once that is done, we will need to import Tailwind by changing the content of our index.css by the following 3 lines. And that was everything needed to configure Tailwind CSS. Now that everything is set up, let's change our app.tsx to see if everything is configured correctly. The following code should give you a hello world text with a green background. Run npm install to make sure all dependencies are installed, and run npm run dev to start your server locally. As mentioned in the logs, the server is running at localhost port 3000. Go there in the browser and you will see your beautiful app. But as you might have noticed, this does not contain any 3D content. This video was supposed to be about creating a 3D website, so let's start doing so. First, let's create a separate function which will contain all code related to the 3D scene. This will return a canvas with a mesh in it. A mesh on itself is nothing to render, so we need to add the geometry and the material of the mesh. In this case, let's create a box by adding a box geometry with a mesh standard material that displays a single orange color. And this will give you a result, but this is probably not what you expected. The box will be very small, it will look like a square and it's black instead of orange. So what happened here exactly? First of all, let's increase the size of the canvas by using the full height of the screen. This way the box becomes bigger and it gets centered. Next, let's fix the color issue. Currently the box is black because there is no lighting added to the scene, so for that we can add a basic ambient light. Now, you probably expected a little more 3D than this square, so let's rotate our box to actually prove that this is not a square. For this, let's create a separate function for the box. Put all the mesh related code into the box function and remove it in the 3scene function. To rotate, we will need to reference the mesh using the useRef hook. We will also use the useFrame hook provided by react-three fiber to run specific code on every frame. In this case, we will rotate the box on its x and y axis. Save your file and you will see the box starts to rotate. This looks way better already, but the box is still a single color, which does not look very realistic and makes it impossible to see the borders. This is because of the ambient light, which adds an evenly distributed light all over the scene. To add light that comes from a specific point, like a light bulb in real life, we can add a point light. Give it a position to make sure it shines on the box from a specific angle, and voila, you created your first 3D website. Excited about what you just created? Make sure you like this video and follow my channel for more three.js and React-Three Fiber content. Feel free to ask your questions in the comments down below, and I will see you next time. Ciao!